This episode is being sponsored by the Complete Dancer Project, which is presenting a one-day course for Irish dancers, parents and Irish dancing teachers at the University of Limerick on August 11th, 2018 from 9:30am until 5pm. For more information, please visit facebook.com, The Complete Dancer Project. My name is Martin Percival, and you are listening to the Irish Dance Podcast, folk dance to phenomenon and beyond. Hi everyone, I'd like to introduce our guest today. He's an Irish dancer and performer, and also a certified personal trainer, and to me, quite the comedian. Please welcome Kevin McCormack.
Great, thank you for having me.
Hey Kevin. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. How did you get involved in Irish dance, and who did you dance for?
So I first got involved with Irish dance when my grandmother got me the video for Riverdance when I was about 3 years old for Christmas. And it was just one of those things where I was watching it like 10 times a day. I was trying to dance the numbers in my living room for my family, and I wanted to start taking lessons in it. And my parents, it was funny, they just thought it was a phase that kids go through. But then after 3 years of me begging them to sign me up for classes, they finally did. And so I started with the O'Shea Chaplin Academy of Irish Dance in Boston. And I continued competing with them up until 2014 when I did my last competition.
Wait a minute. So you were begging your parents for 3 years before they took you to a class?
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So in that time I was trying to dance Riverdance and Lord of the Dance in my living room. And I would have, like, at family parties, I would have my family sit on the couch, and I would come dancing down the hallway like I was coming out of the wings, and do different numbers. It was funny.
Oh my God, that is gorgeous. Yeah. That is so adorable. Do you have any video of that?
Oh God. Maybe somewhere deep in the archive.
You need to dig that out. That's such an adorable story.
That will never see the light of day.
No, it would be good to see, like, you as a little 3-4-year-old. That would be absolutely so cute. That would go viral in the Irish dance world.
Yeah.
So dancing for the O'Shea Chaplins, excellent school. How did you? How was that for you?
That was great. I started at just a small class just south of Boston in Quincy with Rita O'Shea, who was the main dance teacher at the time, and a legend in the Irish dance world. A legend, yes. To say the least. Yeah. So I started with her. And it was funny, from the very day that I started, I was her little Quincy boy, she would call me.
Oh, that's cute.
Because I guess she saw a lot of potential in me, and she really tried to give me a little bit more personal attention because I just took such a liking to it, and I was finally taking the lessons that I had always wanted to take. So I think I sort of gave a little bit more. I think I just gave those lessons a little bit more than all of the other kids that were doing it, because they were maybe forced to go by their parents or something, or they had a sibling that was doing it. So maybe they didn't want to be there, but I actually did want to be there. So I gave, how do you want to say it? I gave a crap, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's probably the harshest way to put it, but it's true. I was probably only one of the few that gave a crap in that class.
I love that. But to me, that's a teacher's dream. Somebody who walks in who really wants to be there, is not forced by their parents, and that has been practicing for 3 years, even if it was your own interpretation.
Self-taught, if you will. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I love it. That's brilliant. So your competitive career then, just spend a little bit of time and just let me know how that all panned out for you.
I started in September, and my first fesh was in May. so I just continued competing. It was never one of those things that I got into Irish dancing for. So I think I just kind of went along with it and saw it as something that I needed to do in order to stay relevant with it. But I never really got into the competitive side of Irish dancing until I did my first Oireachtas in 2004, when I did the Oireachtas and I qualified for the Worlds my first time out. And so I realized that was, I was like, I might actually be good with this and I might actually go far with it. So I think that was sort of the turning point as to where my how do you want to put it? The original reason why I started dancing was because it looked really cool and I wanted to try it, but then it turned into more of a competitive hobby for me around that time.
I think I find it really interesting that you were watching the videos and everything. That so you're of the generation that were inspired by Riverdance and Lorderdance, and I love that because it was, for me, it was a much more cool looking Irish dance than I'd ever seen. So boys, very masculine and this, that, and the other, and I suffered, I wouldn't say bullying, but just a bit of fun made out of me because I was a dancer when I was going through school. Did you experience any of that?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Especially going into middle school. I found that, people always sort of knew that I danced. When I had started in third grade, I didn't really make it, I didn't really hide it. Everybody knew that I danced, and I would dance in school talent shows and different extracurricular shows that the school would put on. But once I got into middle school, I think it's just sort of that age where kids are trying to find themselves, and there's different friend groups being made, and I just kind of, I'd say, fell into the background a little bit because I took my dancing so seriously. So it was always one of those things where oh, come on, Kevin, let's go see a baseball game or we have baseball practice. And it's oh no, I have dancing. So I think I sort of strayed away from the norm a little bit. And my peers saw that, I guess, not as a weakness, but it stuck out to them.
Just different.
Yeah. So I definitely got bullied between 6th and 8th grade for it. And as time went on through 7th and 8th grade, it got pretty bad. And so that's why I ended up going to a private high school. And when I went to that different high school, I didn't tell anybody that I danced. And I actually kept it a pretty good secret for about 3 years. And I think it was just a maturity thing that sort of clicked one day when I decided for a school project that I was going to do a project on Irish dance. The teacher gave us the freedom to do a project on whatever we wanted, as long as it was informational. And so I did a project on the history of Irish dance and what it's been like today, how Lord of the Dance and Riverdance have changed it and brought it to the forefront and made it a phenomenon, really. And it just so happened that day that we were presenting our project at school, it was Spirit Week. And at the end of Spirit Week at our high school, we would have a talent show. So at the end of the presentation, I said, this is a history of Irish dance, but if you come to the talent show in about 5 minutes, you'll be able to see me dance.
Oh, wow.
So then people were like, oh my God, this is going to be so cool. And so people were like, oh my God, I can't wait to see you dance. And I was kind of still in a state of shock because I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I've kept it a secret for 3 years. And it's basically I'm letting everything go. So I was kind of in my own trance. But then people were like, oh my God, it's going to be so cool. And it just like kind of wasn't registering with me that I had been sort of ashamed of dancing for 3 years in middle school, and I looked at it as a bad thing. And now people were like, oh my God, you're actually really good. Like, this is so cool. Why did you not tell anybody about this? And I guess it was all just a personal journey within myself, I think.
Yeah, of course. And everybody copes with that type of behavior differently. Mm-hmm. And we could totally get it that you wanted, when you went to high school, you wanted to reinvent yourself and that kind of thing. Right. Yeah, we all do it. So when you did perform at the talent show and you outed yourself as an Irish dancer,
basically,
how, you got a good reception, right?
Yeah, it was actually amazing.
Right. Yeah. And so that's positive reinforcement. And I just think that, I don't know. Like, of course, we don't want to rewind jump back in time. But do you think high school would have been different for you had you been more open about your dancing?
I think it would have been. But at the end of the day, I don't really regret not telling anybody, because I could sort of make that new name for myself, and people could get to know me not as the Irish dancer, which was kind of nice, because that's how I was known my entire life, basically.
Quincy boy.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it was just one of those things that I wanted to try, and I didn't want to be known as that. And so it was a bit of self-identity that I wanted to try and change, not for, I guess, really anybody else, but I think it was, I don't really know where I'm going with this, but
that's all right. I totally understand, because I when I was in school, I tried to keep it a secret, just because of course, in retrospect, I look back and say it wasn't anybody else's business, but I just didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to have to deal with it.
Right.
And it was something that I was good at, and that so I got my kick, so to speak, going to competition and doing well and everything. And I was happy enough to leave it there and not have to show the world for a time.
Right.
And then there came a time where I was very proud of what I was doing. But what I particularly like is that you managed to keep dancing throughout the entire school, your period of your life. And that's a testament to a character. I quit for a couple of years, but I think it's amazing that you carried on. So how, just brag a little bit about your competitive life.
So I had qualified for the Worlds every year since 2004. And I was always just sort of skimming, I think, along like a certain level in the competitive world. Since 2007, I believe I was always in the top 10 at nationals. And then it wasn't really until I started my professional career that I started to really realize the importance of practicing. Because my parents and my teachers would always tell me, you have to practice at home in order for you to get better. And
right.
I was just one of those kids where it was like, unless I didn't realize it myself, it wasn't going to happen. So I always just sort of skimmed by. But until my first tour with Lord of the Dance in 2013, I had always just kind of gone to class and not really done anything else. But when I did go on that tour, I started weightlifting with a group of the guys, just to kind of make friends and just to give me something to do in the venue when you're just kind of waiting around in between lineup and doing the show. And that sort of gave me the confidence to, really take charge of my own competitive achievements. If I wanted to make them better, I needed to work for it. Just like, if we're taking the example of weightlifting, like how bodybuilders take their bodies, and then if they want to, do a competition, and really change their physique, they need to put in the work, and that really has to be the only thing that you're focused on. So I think I really took that into consideration when I started training after I got home from that tour, and that's when I really started to see a difference in my competition results. So then after I had started the weightlifting and I really started taking it seriously, I ended up winning my Oireachtas finally.
Well done.
And then our team ended up doing really well. But again, that's a group achievement. But I was just blessed to be a part of that. And then in 2014, I actually went on to win the All-Ireland Championship. And that was definitely the highlight, I would say, of my competitive solo career.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal achievement.
Yeah.
Well done.
So then after that, I just continued doing shows and weightlifting. And I feel like the weightlifting has complemented the show dancing very well, in that you obviously do need to be physically fit in order to do a show. But now there, I believe, is a bit more pressure on looking the part in shows.
Right.
So I think it's also important to not only just do it for yourself and make yourself healthy and things like that, but I think it's also important to realize that at the end of the day, you have a job to do. And it's important to stay healthy and fit for that as well, because it is your job. So.
Yeah, that's really good advice, actually. I should probably take it myself. I really like what you said about, so after your first tour of Lord of the Dance, that's when it kind of kicked in with you that you, in order to be successful in your competitive career, that you would need to work. And I think that happens to people, they're in their own journey. It happens at very different times when the whole work ethic kicks in. But it's proven very successful to you, especially with weightlifting and everything. And you did Lord of the Dance, you've done Dance Masters, Rhythm of the Dance, Riverdance, Celtic Fire, and of course our very own Irish Dance Theatre. And so that's a phenomenal amount of stage experience that you've gained in a relatively short period of time. Can you speak to that and how, whether, obviously I would imagine you enjoy it, how has the professional aspect of Irish dance been for you?
I would definitely say that it's been a positive experience overall, by far. Obviously there's, I don't want to say downsides to everything, but there's always like things that could be improved. But overall, I would definitely say that it's been a positive experience for me. Being on stage every night, having an audience clap for you is always a great experience. And it's always a privilege to be on stage with such talented people and talented groups from Ireland, England, even Spain, different countries and different backgrounds of dance and things like that. I think going forward, I take a lot of what I learned in the shows, like hard work, determination, motivation, staying fit, just things like that. I think going forward, all of those things that I learned in shows will definitely help me a lot more in my fitness career going forward.
Oh, absolutely. I was speaking to somebody else, and I think we always need to keep learning. And any choreographer, any other dancer that I've worked with, I've always learned something, even if it's not how to do something.
Right, exactly.
But you do learn, and I just think that the people that you surround yourself with is where you can tap into your potential. So having all of that stage experience, I think, has really benefited you. I know from our perspective at Irish Dance Theatre, you're a very strong performer, and obviously you're a technically good dancer as well. But when it comes to performance, you need to be engaging and this, that, and the other. Are there any particular shows or aspects of the shows that you've either had a horror story with, or something really positive?
Ooh, horror stories. Nothing jumps out at me.
That's good.
I guess that is a good thing. Yeah. But as far as positive experiences go, a number of them jump out at me. As I said before, when I first started with Irish dance, it was watching Riverdance and Lord of the Dance. So definitely my first show ever with Lord of the Dance obviously was a scary one because it was my first show, and I just wanted to do a good job. But it ended up going really well. And it was like a switch was flipped, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is absolutely amazing. I can't believe I get to do this every night. And it's like all this years of hard work had finally paid off at that moment. And so that was definitely a great thing. And my first show with Riverdance was definitely an emotional one because that was the first Irish dance anything that I had really ever seen. So then to be on stage with them, that was just empowering, I think I would say.
That gives me goosebumps thinking about it. Just speak a little bit to that, because that must have been gorgeous for you, like from 3 years old watching it and then being in the show. That must have been, oh God, I think that's brilliant.
Definitely a few things had changed from me dancing down the hallway into my living room for my family members to actually dancing out in front of an audience of 2,000 people. But I think definitely one of the most positive things that have come out of my professional career is always having my parents and my family at shows. I think there's really no other feeling like that when you have worked so hard for such a long time and your family has sacrificed so much for you, has sacrificed definitely a lot of money and time spent into like driving you to class and buying your costumes and flying you everywhere and all that stuff. So even if it's a 2-hour show that they get to sit there and it may not seem like much, they've watched, let's say, 15 years of hard work and time spent between everybody involved. And they can just finally sit there and see all of that hard work on stage. It's just, there's really no other feeling like it. I'm not really too sure how to put it into words. It's just something that should be felt. Everybody should be blessed enough to experience that themselves because it's just truly an amazing feeling having your family in the audience.
Yeah, that's lovely. That is really lovely. It is. I agree with you. It's a very, very special feeling. Do you have any plans to take your teachers or take Irish dance further, or is it just the fitness that you're focusing on right now?
Yeah, definitely. So I've taken some of my grade exams so far. I still have a few left, but once I finish those, I'll be looking into taking my TC and getting certified to teach. As far as plans of opening my own school, I'm not really too sure. I'm pretty happy at the moment with what I'm doing. So I think my TC might just be something that I'd like to have. And then someday I'd like to go for my AD as well, to judge. And then, it's just kind of taking it one day at a time and seeing where life takes me, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. But you're a certified fitness a personal trainer, and so that's a great world to get involved in. Do you want to do anything with Irish dance with that, or do you just want to keep that separate?
Yeah, definitely. Originally that was one of the reasons why I wanted to get my certification in personal training, was because obviously there is a market now for personal trainers in Irish dance, and Irish dance itself is becoming more of an athletic sport than it was, let's say, 30 years ago. So a lot of cross training, as I personally found out myself when I was doing shows and I started weightlifting, and I saw how my fitness, just in my everyday life, but also my dancing had improved. So I definitely think that I would love to be the one to change another dancer's life, as far as fitness is concerned, because with fitness, it sometimes cannot just only be about the dancing. Like, yes, you may start so you can get better stamina, or you want to have higher clicks or something like that. Like, you want to be a stronger dancer. But it can also help you in other aspects of your life too. Like, it can help your mental health. It can also just make you feel good after a workout, knowing that you've done something productive for the day. So it can just be like those little things every day that can sort of change either your way of thinking or your mood. So I would like to be that sort of driving force in somebody else's life, and be that positive experience too.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's a really great goal to have, and I think you will impact a lot of lives with what you're doing, and I just think that's amazing. So thank you for that. So if you were to take charge of the Irish dance world right now, even for just a day, and you could add or subtract stuff from it, what would you like to do?
So if I were to take charge of the Irish dance world for a day, I think
King Kevin.
King, yeah. So if I were to take charge, I would probably have to say going back to basics would be very important, because with all of the new choreography and different styles of dancing, I think we're losing sort of, obviously, the traditional aspect of Irish dance. And I always love watching old videos of dancers in even the 60s and 70s and even 80s and 90s and things like that. So I always find it interesting to watch how the styles have changed. But I also think it would be great if we kept, if we remembered where Irish dance came from and keep an aspect of that in the competition scene nowadays. It would be great if we could continue to move Irish dance forward with innovative choreography and things like that. But I also think there needs to be a traditional aspect as well, because it was a traditional thing for the Irish culture. So I think it's really important that we keep that going forward.
That's really interesting to me. I find it interesting as a younger dancer would be interested in what we used to do back in the day. I do find that fascinating because, of course, Irish dance progresses all the time, and it's like a juggernaut. It doesn't stop. It just keeps moving forward and evolving, which is a great thing. But I never thought that, somebody of your age would look back and say that what we did back in my day was actually interesting. so I like that. I think there's room for all of it, to be honest, in Irish dance. You might be right. We might be losing slightly the traditional aspect, but it's still supposed to be community based. Do you find that?
So I've definitely experienced situations where I felt a great sense of community in Irish dance. I mean, going to the Worlds or the Nationals is always great because you're surrounded by a bunch of people who are basically obsessed with the same hobby that you are. So that's always a nice feeling to have. But I've also been in situations where I felt very lonely in the Irish dance community. So I think because it's so small, it's very easy to get caught up in things that don't actually really matter that much. I know that growing up, we're always being told what we could do better about our dances, or we're constantly at feshes being judged, and we're at class, like we're being compared to people or things like that. So I think it's always sort of important to keep aware not only of how you're thinking of yourself, but also what maybe your influence on other people are as well. Because it is such a small community, I think it's very easy to lose sight of that.
Yeah, so you could essentially say it's just one big, large family, and there's always going to be some sort of...
Right, yeah. Like, I would say it's a big family, and brothers and sisters are going to argue, and, like, you're not going to talk for a weekend or things like that. So I think we just have to remember that we're a big family in this community, and even though we may get mad at each other sometimes or whatever, things like that, I think it's always just important to remember that we have each other at the end of the day to sort of fall back on. And
I definitely have seen some dysfunction within this family. But just coming back, if you don't mind, just to what you said about finding aspects of loneliness within the Irish dance community, can you just elaborate on that a bit and just tell me how that manifested?
Yeah, so dancing on stage with a talented group of people every night and having an audience cheer for you is always great. But at the same time, coming into a show with people who have been there for years or things like that, like my very first tour with Lord of the Dance, I was the only new person on that tour. So it was very easy for me to feel and get in my own head about being the only new person and not really having anybody in the same boat as me. And yeah, there were people that had joined the troupe the year before or 2 years before, so they were fairly new. But there was still that aspect of me being brand new, never dancing on a big stage before, panicking, thinking that I didn't know the steps when I actually did, and just over analyzing things. So I think when I say I felt a sense of loneliness, I mean, there was definitely that tour where I was the only new one, but being on tour, you're also there without your family. And I think your actual family obviously has a different feeling than your dance family. So sometimes you just have those days where you're homesick and you just want to be around like your brothers and sisters or your mom and your dad. And so it's always great to call back home and sort of have those one-on-one conversations with people and maybe vent about something that happened that week or something like that. But yeah, I would say being on tour can get sometimes lonely. Even if you do have great friends on tour, some days you have good days and some days you have bad days, and they're just going to come with the job, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for talking about it. It is. I find it interesting. The experience that I've had from professional Irish dance is that I've always been part of, for the most part, been part of a large group that were learning at the same time. So we were all in the same boat, and you have that kind of survivorship where you feel like you're all going through the ringer at the same time, you know. So just coming in and everybody else having already had that experience, and then you're the only one experiencing, must be extremely difficult. And I'm wondering if we should always have like at least two people starting at the same time, you know, just so you've got a buddy, you know. Yeah. Because
I think the other difficult thing too is that you're constantly around the same people 24/7, and the room is definitely there to create amazing, long-lasting relationships with people. But at the same time, like I said, you have those bad days, and there's been days on tour where I don't even want to talk to like my best friend. It's just sometimes you need that alone time. And it's a difficult thing to go through, but everybody goes through it. So there's that aspect as well.
Touring life, it can be extremely difficult, and it's not for the faint of heart, but everybody thinks it's just so glamorous, and there is quite a few downsides to it as well. But like you said, your professional experience so far has been positive overall, which is amazing. So, well, thank you very much, Kevin. I think we've covered everything. There's just the rapid fire question at the end, section that we have to do. So we have to go to this. Don't think too hard about it. Just answer it on the fly. So what's your favourite food?
Pizza.
Brilliant. Riverdance or Lord of the Dance?
Oh, that one I can't answer. I've been given amazing experiences by both shows, so I have to respectfully decline that question.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Oh, that's a difficult one too. I would say some of the best advice that I've ever been given would probably be along the lines of don't take yourself too seriously, but also to always be learning, always be a blank canvas. Every day when you walk into work, there's going to be new challenges. So I believe that your longevity in the competitive world, but also the professional world of Irish dance, your longevity is based on how well you're going to be able to adjust to it.
Right.
So I would just say always be a blank canvas and always be willing to learn and mold, if you will.
Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Kevin. That's lovely, because I as somebody who's employed you as a dancer, I find you extremely adaptable at whatever we're doing, very quick to learn, but also
fab.
And great performance quality and everything. We love having you at Irish Dance Theatre, but you also bring a sense of yes, not taking yourself too seriously. You're the comic and lighten the mood, and that's absolutely vital in a company as well. So we really appreciate that. So, is there a book that has changed your life?
Coming from not much of a reader,
or a movie that's changed.
A movie. Actually, there is a book that does come to mind. There was a book that I read last year called You're a Badass.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that has been a pretty popular book lately. And that just gave me a lot of really good insight into realizing my full potential as a human being, but also as a professional in the workforce as well. And obviously, reading one book is not going to change the way that I think overnight. It's a constant, if you want to say, emotional and mental shift. And I'm always working on it every day. But I think you always have to start somewhere. But that book, You're a Badass, was the stepping stone that I needed in order to push myself further and realize my full potential. That's
great. I'll put a link in the show notes. I really like what you're saying about the your emotional journey. And as soon as we become self-aware, I think once we realise that we're works in progress, that
right.
You can you feel free to make mistakes, but you're always learning. I love that.
Right.
I love that.
There's a lot of self-acceptance, I think, that has to come with that realization as well. So I think it's obviously a struggle trying to get to that point, but once you get there, I feel that's when you can really start making changes in your life.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I 100% agree. That's excellent advice. Switching gears. It's
going to be written in my book next year.
Oh, are you going to write a book? That's great.
Oh, God, no. God,
no. So switching gears a little bit, pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
God, no.
What is wrong with you people? Okay.
No.
All right, just a final question then. If, just one piece of advice you would give to aspiring Irish dancers. It could be competitive dancers or professional dancers.
So I would say my advice to dancers just in general is learn to take critiques and criticism with a grain of salt, if you want to say. I was never great at taking critiques when I was growing up. So that's definitely been something that I've had to learn over time. But I think coming to that realization that it's not someone picking on you, it's someone wanting to make you better. And if you really take everything that someone is trying to tell you and put it into practice, many things are going to change for you. So I think it's just always, again, it's being a blank canvas. So I think learning to take critiques is very important for competitive dancers as well as show dancers. If you want to be employable for years to come, then you have to be adaptable. So I think that would be my advice to dancers.
Yeah, and that's excellent advice. Thank you very much, Kevin. That's brilliant. Well, we'll call it a day there. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Irish Dance Podcast. If you haven't already, please go to iTunes or your favourite podcast app and subscribe to our podcast. That would be great. And if you are on iTunes, if you wouldn't mind please leaving a review, that would be awesome. Thank you very much. Please visit our website at theirishdancepodcast.com. There's also a survey there where you can fill in what you think about the show so far. So look forward to your feedback and have a great day. Bye-bye.